And I want you to think about that. Because you see, it's the most, first, it ain't true. And secondly, it's the most defeatist remark that can ever be made. Now, 200 years ago, there were revolutions and trouble starting in South America. And this country, then England, or well, the United Kingdom, but this country, decided to support the local peoples in uprising against the autocratic corrupt autocratic regimes of the old Spanish Empire. And as a result of that, this country has traded successfully and had good relations with South America as a whole, including Argentina. Of course, there are particular issues and things going on, etc. But that was a result of the support which was given to the uprisings 200 years ago, just under 200 years ago. And I want to say this, that the strategy should be no longer that we accept this thing called interests. Whose interests? Well, for a start, it's the interests of a few group of politicians who go to Bahrain and come back with a few gold coins in their pocket, or in the case of royalty, a jewelled casket. But whose interests are actually being represented? Well, yes, there are some arms manufacturers, but the greater interest, the greater economic interest will be that if you have an economic democracy in the society, politically democratic and economically democratic, and we have supported them, you can guarantee the amount of trade and spending between the two countries will be 2, 3, 4 times what it is now. And that is the crux of the matter I suggest for the way forward, to point out that the present strategy is corrupt. It's about things in hands in pockets. It's about an imperial mindset when we no longer have an empire. It is also about something else. It is about supporting an axis of evil consisting of Saudi Arabia, Israel and the USA, in which at the end of the day we are supporting outdated structures of the Gulf Council, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, for example, because they in practice support, in practice I said, not verbally, in practice they support the existence of the Zionist entity and are willing to tolerate and accept its expansion. And that is the deal with Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. Because you see, the policy of this country is decided ultimately by the Zionists. As to what I think is happening, I think they're slowly starting to move to some sort of Middle East war now, at the beginning of which the Israeli armies will move very, very quickly into the lands that they wish to occupy under their theory of the biblical empire 2,000 years ago. Well now, Chair, that's long enough for me. I point out that by destroying that symbol of national symbolism, the killer Khalifa have actually shot themselves in the foot, because they were also destroying something with its 6 supports represents the Gulf Cooperation Council. And my recommendation to this conference is that you do consider, yes, we can take them at their word, and remember the bigger economic interest is that in Saudi Arabia and in the states of the Persian Gulf we have modern democracies, people who will be grateful to us for the help we've given them for their liberation. They will be trading with us on a large scale forevermore. Thank you, Chair, very much indeed.
Thank you, Rodney, for the splendid talk and very sincere input, really. Please be on the panel. You can be there, no problem. Our next speaker is from Stop the War Coalition, a former CWU trade unionist, a political and human rights activist, and very strong supporter of and defender of the oppressed people around the world, and he is so active, and our sincere, no one but our sincere activist, Mr. Steve Bell. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Steve Bell.
Thank you, Gerard, for that. First of all, I'd like to offer the greetings from the Stop the War Coalition to the conference today, and we wish you every success with your deliberations. I will be talking about some concrete things about Bahrain later, but frankly, you have many more expert speakers on the issue than me today. So what I think is the most useful contribution I can make is how the coalition estimates the new political situation in the Gulf and the Middle East following Trump's election, and what we can expect, what political shifts. And to start by saying that our estimate is that when Trump says that he is America first, that is not a statement of a new form of isolationism. On the contrary, we can expect continued heavy intervention by the United States in the Middle East. There will be some shifts, so that on the question of Syria, I think the thing we must also stress is that Trump made a virtue in his election campaign of the idea of American foreign policy being unpredictable. So that the announcement, for example, of an offensive on Mosul, the announcement of the withdrawal in Iraq, Afghanistan, all of these things, from his perspective, were mistakes. Instead, there should be unpredictability. So, the shifts that we will see, are conditioned by that fact. On Syria, he said he wants greater cooperation with Russia, and the subtext appears to be a move away from promoting regime change via the armed opposition. But he has also stated that he wants safe zones in Syria. Now, whether this means the kind of no-fly zone that we saw in Iraq and in Libya, it's completely unclear. He's refused to clarify this, although there is underway an examination by his administration. But most likely will be support for the Turkish occupation and perhaps some relationship to the Kurdish administration in Raqqa. A much more emphatic shift, and I think much more important as far as the future of the Gulf goes, is the shift on the issue of Iran. His analysis is that the nuclear deal on Iran is not just a bad deal. He says it's one of the worst deal ever. And as you will have noticed, his administration has already said they are putting Iran on notice. Now, what that actually means we can speculate, but it certainly is not going to be friendly. We already know that his view on Yemen is that Iran has taken over Yemen. That's what his analysis is. And we saw last week with the use of drone strikes in Yemen and the terrible casualties amongst civilians and children, that is determined to back up this with military force. We can therefore assume that Trump will take the